right, everyone. If you finished part 1, you already know that this whole discussion took 3 hours. So we're chopping it up into 3 separate episodes, both for YouTube and for the podcast. This is part 2. It's going to carry the same spoiler warning, full book series spoilers, and full spoilers for season 1 of the Wheel of Time TV show. This episode, or this part, is going to pick up where part 1 left off. If you haven't watched or listened to part 1, look down in the description below if you're on YouTube, or the show notes if you're listening to it on a podcast app. And a link to part 1, both the YouTube video and the podcast, will be down below for you to go and listen to part 1 and hear our guests introduce themselves and hear a whole hour of content for that. So we're going to start the next hour of this 3-hour episode here, and we hope you enjoy.
Guy Roberts, the character now has plot armor. Bam!
Yep.
Right there.
All right.
Yep.
Like
Can we talk about Pat and Fane? I don't know where you wanted to go, but Fane.
No, we're good.
All right,
Yeah.
Jim's waiting
The
in
only
the
thing I'm
love.
looking at topics for is the timeline that we told y'all we were looking for. So I'm happy to go longer. So.
I was about to say, if we need to go
I wish I
longer,
could
just
go
break
longer.
this up into
Longer.
a part 1, part 2.
What about
Are
Fane?
we tantricking?
Well, I
Episode
love
Anyway.
what they've done with Pat and Fane.
Yeah, he's actually
You know,
like
I have to admit,
likable.
the first time I read the books, I totally missed how significant Pat and Fane was. I just didn't get it until it's like, wait, what? I should have been paying attention to this guy. I just was not getting it at all. Here, totally different kind of guy. He knows what he's doing. He's calculating.
get
He's
those
behind
words?
this stuff, and I love it. So, where they've taken Pat and Fane, everybody watching it, they're going, ooh, this guy's bad news. This guy's interesting. What's with the freaking whistling? You know, they
Yeah.
figured this out, and it's awesome, and I love it. One of the few
I wanna
things,
know
hands
whether that
down,
was
I just love
Johan.
about the adaptation.
I
Yeah.
really want to know whether that was Johan or the show or both with the whistling, because that
Who
is
came up with the
so
whistling? Yeah.
fucking perfect.
Do you know what I
So good.
love about Johan's intro into the series? And I know we're supposed to be talking about episode 8, but if we're talking about Pat and Fane, I have to throw this out there. His intro to the series is him rolling into town with a wagon,
Yep.
and the children, oh, Pat and Fane, Pat and Fane. And all I could think was Gandalf
Mhm.
rolling
Oh,
into
yeah,
the
totally.
fire. And I was like,
Absolutely.
only he's scary and
Mhm.
murdery
Oh, yeah.
and not
Oh,
okay.
Not okay.
I'm scared. He's the anti Gandalf at this point, and I'm terrified.
Yeah.
Except
intro was
for
awesome.
All
He came in.
non-readers, he
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
Gandalf.
But he came
Now,
on
he
in as that
turns
nice
very
guy.
quickly not Gandalf because his conversation with Matt is
With
very
Matt.
Yeah,
un-Gandalf.
he's
So he was
shady.
like on either side, you know, he was
Yeah.
good, he's bad, and oh no. Then you
Oh,
see
no.
him during the attack, and he's just out there going, wandering
So
off.
long, sucker.
He knew.
But later on in the season, this will be my time. The swagger that he has when he walks
Yes.
out
Yes.
of the Waygate
Yes.
is so perfect for the character.
Mhm.
And again, you're not supposed to like Pat and Fane. You're not supposed to think he's a good guy. You're not supposed to think, and I hate this motherfucker. Pat and Fane is the worst. He's absolutely awful. He does horrible things. He's the
Yes.
fucking worst. And yet, Johan, I love him. I love this fucking character. I love the way it's being done. And just honestly, literally, when he walks out of the Waygate, I was like, this motherfucker, Johan.
Yeah, he's charming. They made him charming, and rather than kind of like a a skeezy, creepy villain, they made him someone where you're like, this is a likable villain.
He's got
this
that
is
James Bond suave to it.
Oh,
yeah.
yes.
Right? He doesn't
You're sitting
deserve.
like- he walks out of the Waygate and you're like, how the fuck did you get here? And he just holds up this little thing and is like,
He sits in the throne with his leg over the arm and mwahaha, monologues
Dude.
to Perrin. Yeah.
And then you sly dog. You
You caught me
I
monologuing.
love the callback to the book, the book readers, because that's exactly how Rand sits in fucking Thrones later on.
That's-
When he's
yes,
reading the Carathian
yes.
cycle, that's how you see Rand. It's amazing. I love it. I love it so much. Anyway, sorry, somebody else's time. I have talked
I
too
love the Thane entrance because not just is that a great scene because it's like misdirection to non-book readers, but also Eye of the World calls back to Lord of the Rings so much. And I love that the show calls back to Lord of the Rings movies like that.
Yep.
Yes, it does.
It's just another
Good
level
point.
of
A peddler is
another
never
Easter
late.
egg. You know, the
Nor
layering
is
of
he
scenes and
early.
the importance of things they're doing is so great. And that's just another one that has nothing to do with the story, but does because the book matches, pays tribute to Lord of the Rings book. And so the TV show pays tribute to the Lord of the Rings movie. And it's just, yes.
Now I really want the line where Padan Fane walks in and goes, "A peddler is never late, nor is he early. He arrives precisely when the Trollocs do." And that would be fucking amazing.
The line works great for fantasy, but not for like relationships, apparently.
Oh, no.
All right, moving on to our next kind of dynamic duo. This discussion will also include Agomar and Amalisa and the other accompanying characters from Valdara, excluding Min. She gets her own category because
Sure.
Because she's not a lamp.
I'm biased and I'm unashamed, and I will always say that.
Also, she deserves her own character. I don't know what you're
she
doing.
does.
Like, it's not about
by
bias.
the way,
it's just accuracy. Like, seriously.
Anybody listening live,
Min
our guest that we're
stands.
talking to right now, and on the 4th or whatever fucking day this episode goes live, I don't know, the 7th, Kay Alexander is on Cameo.
Ooh.
Oh,
$100 for
Yes.
personal use, $500 for commercial use, and I swear, if somehow we as a community don't get her to make some kind of reference to the lamp joke as a cameo, I will cry in the positive of her not being a
Oh,
lamp.
it's gonna
Like,
happen.
hey, I'm not a lamp, but I'll shed light. You know.
nice.
Anyway. Moving on. Nynaeve and Egwene in this whole scene, because episode 8 is very much these kind of two really distinct and one kind of subplotty arcs. We have the subplotty arc of Padan Fane and Perrin and Loyal and Uno and the other kind of like core kind of kings or lords
Ingtar
guard
and Lord,
Yeah.
whatever his name is.
in Faldara. But then we have the story arc with Nynaeve and Egwene and the actual like defense of Tarwin's Gap and Faldara arc. So, let's do the easy one first. Again, another simple yes, no. Agomar, dead or alive? No, he's not dead.
No.
Yes. Oh, he's
dead.
He's so
He's
dead.
totally
100% dead.
He's
I'm wearing the
absolutely
shirt.
fucking dead.
He's so
I'm wearing the
dead.
shirt specifically
dead
Yeah,
for
as
this.
they've
hell.
clearly changed the plot, Andrew. They've clearly changed it.
Yeah, I
Okay,
don't
he's
know
gone.
if you've been watching this show. but
I'm going to
they've been
return
doing
all the
things that
checks they
aren't
sent me
the-
to be a shill. I'm returning them all.
He
Yes,
did not
return
have-
every single 0 of them, Andrew.
Okay,
return
yes. So-
all of them.
My wife was like, maybe it didn't penetrate the armor. It's in his
No.
friggin' heart. What are you talking about?
It
God,
doesn't
he's
even
pinned-
matter.
he's pinned to
Again,
the wall.
they throw
Not
they
only
throw a
that,
spear
but
into his chest, and then they
Even-
overrun the keep. Like,
Yes.
come on. There's no Trolloc or Fade who's leaving that motherfucker alive.
Like, oh, you got a
Or-
spear in you. I'll just pass you by.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
right,
what I'm
no,
thinking.
they-
I'm thinking
they
I
I
did.
don't think a Murdral goes
Agomar
by,
dirty.
and I think a Trolloc goes by, sees him spear to the wall, and is pushed on by a Murdral. I think
Yeah.
that he survives,
he's
and no, there's no way.
Literally from
No,
social
Amalisa
media
and
to
Amalisa
steal from
and-
elsewhere.
Isn't he confirmed
He's
for
like been
season
saying
2?
goodbye to everybody. He's done.
No, he
That's
had
what I've been
two,
reading.
He had 2 episodes, Andrew. That was 7, and that was 8. He's done.
No.
What
He's
do you say,
alive.
Rob?
Rob,
Put a-
what do you think?
put a Trolloc spear in him. He's done.
I mean, I don't
Was
see
that
Trollocs.
also a
I
dream
don't see
sequence,
Trollocs going room
motherfucker?
to room to level, just taking out the fortress. Like, there's a certain point where it's like, this is completely overrun. We are now going to flood through the back end of this and attack the city.
Yeah.
Like, do you see them
Do you
going
think
door to
that's the
door and
same
checking
for
out every
Murdral,
corner?
motherfucker?
I'm sorry. I'm at that stage in life of watching so many fantasy things now where it's like, if I don't see a body 3 days dead on screen, he's not dead.
Fair.
So
That's a valid
whenever
point.
you have the Shadow Spawn overrunning Tarwin's Gap, you think that a Trolloc is going to search through a fortress to make sure a Trolloc or a Murdral to make sure every individual person is dead? No. There's no way.
Yeah, his facial expression.
The
when those-
orcs did it at Osgiliath, so
Well, that's not the will of time now, is it?
his
correct.
They were
but
occupying that
fuck
city.
you.
They were occupying Osgiliath. They were not just trying to overrun it and get through to a city behind, get to Gondor. Or to the city of Gondor. They were.
I mean, they were.
No, but that was
occupying
like,
it
we're going
get
to take
to
over this
the
place
Spirit
as a new
Hippo.
base for us, and then move on to attack the city. Like the Trollocs were literally like, we just need to destroy the Gap fortress so we can get through to Faldara.
Okay, so why don't they blow it the fuck up or something?
Because they don't
Like,
have dragons. That's why.
We don't have dragons or gunpowder.
They don't have
Or
dreadlords yet.
C4. That's Stargate. That's not Wheel of Time. C4. Yeah.
Yeah, I
The
think his
opposite of silly
expression.
putty.
Aguilar's expression was not the surprise of, oh, I've been speared. It was like that, oh fuck, I've got to like figure, yeah,
it was like-
another one of these.
Oh
Yeah,
no,
it was-
I can't
it-
believe you've done this.
yeah, it was more like
Oh,
this is
no.
annoying, how am
My
I gonna get this
armor.
out? Yeah.
It's
It's
broken.
broken.
Yeah, it was more like I should have worn Daddy's armor after all. Crap,
Yeah, my blacksmith is
Okay,
going to be
you know
so
what?
pissed
Good
at
call.
me right now. You know.
You can shut the fuck up with your good points.
I like what Rob said. Unless I see a body dead for 3 days on screen, they're not dead. I like
3
that.
days might be a stretch, but you get
Who
what
knows?
I'm saying. You know?
Part of
Yeah, no,
Amalisa's burning out could have been healing her love.
Her brother?
Her brother?
Yeah, she
Ooh,
loves her brother.
that's
love your
gross.
brother.
You don't love your siblings?
I don't.
Okay, I don't want to go into that conversation right now.
Ding, 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 ding,
Next,
ding, ding,
next
ding, ding,
question.
Stepbro, what are you doing?
Step brother.
I will end you, Josh.
It's a fair point. I did actually misspeak a ton there, but anyway. So tying in with Nynaeve and Egwene, it seems like the point and the only real point really worth talking a ton about is the linking and channeling. I think we can all agree they have changed the mechanics of how the link works
correct.
Totally.
to a
Yes.
positive direction
Not
for me.
totally, but enough.
Why do you say
Pretty
positive, Andrew?
significantly.
What's the
I say
positive?
positive because it adds to the element of desperation and severity of using a link in combat. Of
I also
surrendering
really like
control
how
of your
that-
ability to channel to one focal point.
I also really like how much the negative effects of that, of taking in too much power, adds to the whole Kalendor arc later. Because that is
If they keep
terrifying.
it, that is my
now.
question.
That is
Because
fucking
if they've removed
in the books, it's a little less scary, but in the show, that's fucking horrifying at this point.
well, I mean,
But if
so my
there is
question
no buffer, no protection, why
Yeah.
would anyone allow themselves to be sucked into a circle like that?
Because they've
Why?
never been to the White
Desperation.
Tower
Desperation
and have
to
That's
never
what I'm
defend
saying.
gone ahead
It
and learned.
adds to the
And let's let the
desperation
person
of the situation.
who never earned the ring, who had
Okay, but
I mean,
she's
to
the
be
only
fair,
one
nobody
with
else
actual
there had ever
training.
earned the ring.
Nynaeve's gonna do jack shit until a Trolloc stabs her in the face.
To be
Like, come
fair, to be fair,
to be fair,
Being in
To
a
be fair.
link and being in the link be somehow protected from being overdrawn does seem like a plot convenience, and it doesn't
It
make a ton of
does.
sense.
It does.
so
So the
Okay.
point I was making, to answer Jim's question, it adds to the desperation of the move. It adds
It
to the
does.
rationale behind why are you 100% surrendering your ability to channel and defend yourself for somebody else to take the reins and do whatever they think is best. It adds to the desperation. It adds to the depth. I like that part. However, it does have serious implications for the buffering of Angriel.
Mhm.
Yes,
Does
it does.
buffering in Angriel still exist? Does it only exist because they're made objects? Is there no buffering at all in any of the links? And it's gonna make I don't have to say a certain scene. It's gonna make the cleansing of Sidene scene, which they cannot get rid of.
Oh,
Cannot.
fuck no.
It's gonna make that incredible
Oh.
because I imagine in that scene we're probably gonna see Rand and Nynaeve almost burn out, even with the chosen
Fuck
call.
yes. Oh my God. I want to see that so hard. Also, like, again, the other thing that really the other thing that I want to mention, as far as Andrew said, is I totally agree that anytime there was a channeler and another
Defending a
channeler,
lot for an episode I gave a 5 out of 10. Holy shit.
and maybe another channeler, because I know that there is diminishing returns on a link. Why the
I'll diminish your returns.
would anyone not link to go ahead and use the power? There is no good reason why any situation in the books where there was 3 or more channelers together that they didn't give control over a link to the person who was the best at using the power. There was no good reason for that at all. In the show, there's now a good fucking reason for that, because somebody might go Chernobyl on your ass if you link with them.
I mean, there
Too
are
soon.
good reasons though, because it's like you can't get out of a link unless someone lets you go, so it prevents you from being able to defend yourself. I mean, like, people die in the last battle.
Well,
Some of the Aes Sedai die
Sure.
because Avienda has hold of the link, and so they get killed by Grendel.
Agreed.
And
they've
then,
changed that a little though, because Nynaeve was clearly able to do something
yeah, I
with
don't
the
know what
power
that
to
was.
protect Egwene while still being controlled.
Also, can we talk
by
about that for a
Annalisa.
second? It absolutely should have been the other way around. The fact that it was Nynaeve the healer taking over that and having herself die, and then Egwene healing her back either to life or from the brink of death, either way, and not Egwene being the one who takes control and almost dying, and then Nynaeve healing her. Like,
Well,
that was a
Nynaeve
bad
knows to
it was
cross
a
the
bad
stream.
choice.
She puts
Shut
herself
up.
physically in position of the streams, crosses the streams, and takes the burden.
No.
So
No.
there is a timetable
That's why
to
we
this.
can't
So,
have nice
like,
things.
a quick interjection. What do you guys think about this timetable? Because it seems to be the timetable that's put forth about the whole reason why Egwene and Nynaeve never actually fully burn out and die. Is that being the powerful channelers they are, obviously leagues above the other 2 semi-nameless characters that just go, huh. And
Wow. All right.
because even at the moment that the second of
Cannon
the other
fodder.
2 dies, they're just now showing signs of burning out, which speaks to their strength, and I'm hoping that came across to non-readers. But
It did.
it seems like the timeline is that they are in the process of burning out for sure.
Yep.
And in a split second, Amalisa burns out and dies.
Yep.
Nynaeve has enough wherewithal and cognition to take and do like she did when Logain was breaking free and heal Egwene from the damage. And then Egwene pulls the same kind of tactic of desperation to need to save on Nynaeve, who has not fully burned out. This is confirmed from the makeup text.
Yes.
Where they were like, we had to show a partial or close to burning out, but not a full burning out. And that's why she's not fully, I want to be Balsamon, coals in my eyes. And Egwene, out of desperation, heals Nynaeve and brings her back from the brink of death.
Yes. I think that's actually what happened. Yeah.
This actually brings up a really great point that I had not considered.
Can you table the
Before
point
now.
for a second?
I will.
Don't
Rob,
forget it. Rob,
talk, please.
Rob has things to say.
I do have
because
things to
for
say.
somebody named Malkier Talks, I haven't heard your voice in a few minutes.
Sorry.
It's okay. I have lots to say, and I was like, I want to let everyone else talk. So, firstly, I want to give a shout out to live chat because Matt Stagger has put a very valid point in there. He said that this scene really puts in Nynaeve's sort of whole block scenario where she has to surrender to access power. Like, think like, oh, I surrendered to Amalisa and we all nearly died because of it, and some of us did die as a result of it. So, like, kudos. That's a really good point.
The flinging of
secondly-
their arms.
Okay.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Really, for a second, I do want to
I'm
mention.
sorry.
It pissed
Sorry,
me off
Rob.
just
Forget
a
it. Go ahead,
hair.
Daniel.
No, it pissed me off just a hair that Nynaeve didn't have a harder time joining the link. Go ahead, Rob. Sorry.
Yeah, that's
I did
yeah,
want to mention that, but
I can get that. Yeah. So I want to call back to episode 4, where you see a difference in the way they link to Gentle Logain and how they link in this episode. And I think it comes down to a training aspect. I think that Annalisa wasn't trained on how to link. And if she was, she didn't take it in properly. Hence, she linked ineffectively. And thus, there was no buffer involved. I think it just comes down to that.
Well,
I hate
also,
you now.
we see fucking
I hate you because it makes so much sense.
Addicted, and I can't
Discord,
let this go.
Yeah, I mean, just the just the actions of her weaves with them. Like the Aes Sedai was sending their weaves to Leandrin. She sent her weaves into the other 4 channelers.
Yep.
To take their power. It was a very different scenario. Yes, there was no hand motions, but the way the power was moving was very different to how it moves in episode 4. So I think that really, really points out why we had that situation.
You know what I have to say, Rob?
Nice.
No!
Yikes! All right,
You're right.
Okay.
And I hate the fact that it's that's such a good point.
It is.
It is.
Just as long as it's not a dream. That's all. That's all I.
Fuck
Oh, I can't.
Fuck you, Rob.
No,
I mean,
that's a great
the
point.
Egwene healing Nynaeve bit, when I first watched it, I was just like, what? That just seemed like thrown in there for like the sake of like, oh, anybody can be saved type thing, which, all right, yeah, they kind of can, but
Nobody's so far lost in the shadow they can't be brought to the light, Rob.
yeah. But then,
and of course,
Rafe
I
said,
hated it was more about the way that it was shot, because I think that they're accurate about their like the timeline there is seconds. The timeline there is absolutely she nearly dies and then Egwene heals her. But of course, the way that it was shot, there's minutes that go by in other scenes in other places.
Yeah.
That makes it seem like Nynaeve is 100% gone. And of course, this is a little bit of a problem with filming in general, is that you want to do that dynamic, like scene to scene to scene to scene thing.
Yeah.
But when you do that, you end up fucking around with time to the point where it looks like, well, this person's been dead for 6 minutes on screen. They're totally fucking dead, even though it's like this scene and this scene happens literally right after each other.
Yeah.
And it's been
So-
no time at all. And you're just like, fuck you. And you're filming shit. Like,
The point I wanted to bring up is, sorry, Jim, go ahead. You were getting ready to talk.
I don't even know if Rob was done.
no
Oh, sorry,
issue
Rob,
with
were
the
you
time.
done?
no, Jim, go, Jim, go.
Okay, real quick. No issue with the time thing that the Daniel said. Just the fact of they've got a friggin' keep, but let's go stand out in front of it by ourselves out in the flat area. Where does that make sense?
hey, Jim.
Why couldn't they be up on the
Shut
wall doing
Shut
this?
up.
Come on.
Oh, somebody.
These are the problems I had with this episode. Those choices that made no freaking sense. That
Did
was
you watch
one.
Daniel Green's video on episode 8?
I have not.
He made the
Yeah, I
exact
did.
same point,
Yeah.
and I was like,
I knew I liked that guy. All right, there you go.
sorry, Rob, before
He's a
we
good
go
guy.
any further, were you actually done?
Talk more.
I mean,
don't.
I
Like,
have
make
more
it your
about
choice.
the fighting scenes, but that is, that's not relevant to the piece there. One small bit about the healing. When I first watched it, I was just like, huh? Well, I don't get how this works or why this seems a bit silly. It's more of a case of like, our main character can die and then come back to life.
Right.
Because like on screen, she'd been dead for, quite a while.
Yes.
Or it looked like she was dead. And on multiple rewatches, and I do mean multiple now, I've paid close attention to the first part of that scene before we get the breaking girls or then come back and she's healed. And Gwen is like, if you look, her hands, she's trying to do something with her hands, and she's like, come on. She's muttering that. So the scene very, very, like, poorly does this, but does very, very sussily try to demonstrate that Gawain's trying to do something with the power,
Yes.
so to speak. And
She
then
does.
we get that long time off screen, and then you get
flash,
in a different
yeah.
scene, and then you come back, and then she manages it. So I was like, if that had been a bit more in your face, it might have made more sense.
So I do
So-
want to throw out there as an answer to you, Jim. I just really quick. I'm not saying that the channelers being outside the keep necessarily makes a huge amount of sense. But the reason that they go defend the gap, the reason that they don't stay in the keep, the reason that they do all of this is, I think, pretty clearly summed up when Lord whatever his name is, which I do not remember right now, says to Agelmar that the drawbridges have been cut and that there are dark friends in the city. Because when your keep is literally just compromised, trying to defend that keep is not necessarily the smartest thing in the world. And so the fact that they actually go out to Tarwin's Gap, and the fact that the channelers go outside the city, all of that, I'm not saying it makes complete sense. I'm not saying that it's like no one should have questions about this at all. But it is definitely at least one line that gives a solid reason as to why they don't just go, yeah, no, we'll defend Faldara. We're good.
Yeah, no issue with going and defending the gap, but then send the women up there. Use the bottleneck. That would have made a heck of a lot more sense. Then let's wait till they've killed all the menfolk. Now we'll zap them here.
Sure.
That's another point.
Now we'll give them the old razzle dazzle. So there is a theory out there that, because we know Rafe had to fight to keep the story of Manetheren story in the show.
Yes.
That part of how he made that happen is just like the harkening back from looking at whatever miscellaneous paradisant future city that is to episode 1. That the same way to keep the story of Manetheren in was to give it a parallel with Lady Amalisa. This last stand of Faldara, giving everything you have and killing other people with you. Kind of story.
Okay.
I can live with that.
If that is the reason that Lady Amalisa becomes the anti-hero of Tarwin's Gap, I can live with that. If Rafe is like, yep, that's the deal we had to make, that's how it happened, I'm good with it. Otherwise, I feel a serious case of TV blue balls. Which leads us in to our next duo, if you will, from episode 8, because she is a Blue Aja sister.
I did wonder. I was like, "What are we going with this?"
I mean, don't get me wrong. Rosamund Pike has been giving me blue balls.
I'm pretty sure Henny got laid in episode 7.
Rosamund Pike has been giving me blue balls since Die Another Day. All right, Miranda Frost was amazing. Moraine is amazing. I love Rosamund Pike. You can have my digits any day. I don't know why you'd want them, but they're there for you.
Yikes,
so
Andrew.
The kind of
mate, she listens to this podcast, brother. Okay, you know.
Sure,
she definitely
but also
does.
I think Avienda is going to be annoyed when she hears this episode later. So just saying.
You court death.
I need to invest in stab-proof clothing. That's the next line of clothing Black Tower Podcast is making. The kind of tantamount kind of what we're kind of focused on for episode 8, at least as book readers, right, is the story of Rand, which in the show is the story of Rand and Moraine and a smidgen of Lan and a fair bit of Ishmael. So I'm not even going to brief overview what happens. We're going to start here with who have I not started with yet? You know, we have we not started with Jim? Jim?
I don't think so.
I was pointing over there, but here, Jim, let's go first. This whole kind of journey that Moraine and Lan go on for the entire episode, they're kind of own kind of secluded events. Highlights, thoughts, but, you know, as we have been doing this whole time, talk about it. It's your fault of control.
So just focusing on episode 8.
Yes.
Okay. Don't really have too big a problem with the Moraine and Lan aspect of it, other than the fact that Lan doesn't just follow right away. Moraine is gone, and really, he didn't know what to do. I can't find her. She's hidden. Come on, dude, you're a tracker. You can do this. It's not just a one power warder thing. You have skills. You know how to manage the blight. Your friggin' towers are sitting out there, and we're going to see them in this episode. So come on. You could have gone ahead and found your way. So I have an issue with that one little bit. But other than that, I really don't have a lot to diss with those two, their characters in this particular episode.
So the question that I would ask, and this is just because you kept it really concise, which I both love and hate, because I want everybody to talk forever.
Well, because I'll
I also
interject
know-
into everybody else's, so you
There
know.
you go.
Oh yeah,
I like
I'm
it.
going to interject and absorb everybody else's time because
He
I'm
knows
that
how
asshole.
it is.
It is
You know
that
how it
day, and I
works.
am that guy. So what Lan initially says to Nynaeve isn't that I can't follow her. It's she doesn't want me to follow her.
Yes.
So do you think at that point the bond is already masked and he's just interpreting that as Moraine being like, hey, it's more serious than, my midnight rendezvous with Suan? Or is it like,
No.
I can feel she doesn't want me to come or follow her?
I
shouldn't
read
say
it
come,
as
but
it's
feel
already masked, so I can't find her. I don't know where she is. He doesn't. If she's gone to the Blight, he does not care that she doesn't want him there. He needs to be there. That is his mandate. He's got to be there to protect her, but he doesn't know how to find her. And then Nynaeve's going to teach him her tell. It's like, what? Really? Serious?
You
That
snitch.
sucked. No.
All right. Daniel.
Honestly, I actually really like this point because, again, I think that Lan is so conflicted because he was off doing his own thing when Moraine masks the bond
Indeed.
and goes into the Blight. And by his own thing, I mean Nynaeve's thing. But so, like, in the end, I feel like he has
He
certain
did
amount of
Nynaeve.
guilt.
Sheathing the sword.
And like I feel like he feels a little bit of guilt about not being around Moraine when
Fuck you, Rob.
she kind of needed him and
Some of the podcasters are just gonna be like,
able,
what? Sorry. Go
to
ahead.
be able to go ahead and ask her the question of, do you need me to follow you? Because in the end, I think that Lan is scared. Look, I get that Lan isn't scared of anything, but he is, though. Like, he's human.
Sure.
And so the fact that he needs to go out to Malkier and see the Seven Towers and follow to the Eye of the World, where he's already been told that no one's coming back if they're not the Dragon Reborn. And even Moraine later on makes that even more known when he's like, when Rand is like, don't come with me. And Moraine is like, yeah, but I'm going to, though. Like, fuck you. Like, I think that Lan feels guilty about the fact that he didn't talk to her about this. He is doing his own thing, and now that he has something to live for, doesn't necessarily want to run headlong into the Blight, but also has this duty to Moraine, and also has the, like, sure, maybe he already can track Moraine, but it's more about the fact that he won't rather than he can't. But then Nynaeve, who is his reason to live now, goes, buddy, you have to go. You absolutely have to go. And then, of course, they do the absolute, like, super awesome, and I'm 100% down with it, like, girl power moment of, I know you're a tracker, but I'm better than you, like, thing. And she's like, Moraine has a tell. And it's great. I actually like that, but I also, like, feel like Lan just gets the okay from Nynaeve, that she's like, no, I might be your reason to live, but she needs you right now. And that's what sends him off into the Blight to find her, not I couldn't do it before, but now that you've told me that she breaks twigs every 7 steps, like, now I can follow. Like, no, I think it's the okay that Nynaeve gives rather than the actual, like,
would agree.
tell.
Would agree.
That's a fair point. Fair point. Because, I mean, he's with her for 20 years. Come on. He could figure out the tell.
Exactly. Yeah.
Come
He
on.
knows she
But
breaks
has
twigs
he-
every 7 steps. Like,
Has
fucking what?
has he ever had to actually track Moraine herself?
Then again, that's also true. That
I'm not
they've
saying
been
he couldn't.
together pretty much all the
I'm-
time.
I would guess
I'm very torn on
yes.
this point. I've got to be honest. I'm not sure whether I like it, dislike it. The permission, I suppose we'll call it permission, but the permission thing from Nynaeve, that I would buy it if that was the situation.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I kind of, I like that. I like that.
I don't
I'm not-
know if
yeah.
I love the I can track her, but it is a nice, like, no, but seriously, like, girl power, I'm better tracker than you. Fuck you,
I mean,
Lan.
It does point out to the
Like-
fact that Lan doesn't leave tracks in effect, then I suppose.
Right?
which makes him more badass. I don't
It
know.
does. Also,
It's a
true.
whole weird scenario, isn't it? You know,
It is.
like
Anyway, moderator, who's next?
Rob, you started, right?
No, Jim started.
no, Jim didn't.
No, I did.
Okay.
I did. I know it was
I knew
short.
one of the-
You forgot already. It's
I knew one of the two of you started. I just like hit a moment of brain fart where I was like,
Morgan, you go.
Morgan,
What
go!
are your thoughts?
Okay, so I feel like the whole point of She Has a Tell was just to give the audience a payout of how did Nynaeve track Lan, and I didn't really care for it because it was just sort of like I feel like he should have a tell and he should know that and find out finally what it is so he can like correct it.
it's the drag lines
Nice.
in the ground of his massive cojones.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
He
feel
forgot
like,
to tie his dick around his ankle. It just
yeah,
dragged him.
exactly. I feel like it kind of cheapens it to be like, oh, it's Moraine's tell, because then it A makes it sound like he didn't know what it was, and B makes it sound like 90 couldn't actually track him. So I think that it's cheap on both those ends. But I also agree it's kind of like she says to him, find Rand specifically. So it's almost like he can tell himself, I'm going to do this for Nynaeve. Not I'm doing it for me, not that, because Moraine does not want to be followed, but Nynaeve wants me to find Rand. And so that's kind of the point of it. And then throwing in Moraine has a tell, so the audience can be like, how did Nynaeve find them? Which I thought was, they should have had it be something else. I mean, she could be like, it was your pimp limp. I can find, it's like you.
I also love how on some level
Hashtag pimp limp.
we've talked about on this show before about how like that's the beginning of their romance is when Lan goes, oh, you tracked me.
Only in the show it was like, oh,
and
you
then in the
actually
show
tried
it
to
was like,
kill
oh,
me.
you didn't.
Yeah, which I
actually
was all
track
for.
me. Like,
yeah,
like
like
now
our
that
first-
we've slept together, this is cheapened. Like,
Yeah.
Okay. I actually like
Well, hold on.
Lan's.
Well,
sorry,
Pip
go.
lip?
Morgan, were you
Huh.
done?
Well, I was just like their first flirting moment is like he's like, you actually tried to kill me, and he says it in like this low, almost sexy voice, and it's just sort of like the subtext there is that's hot.
Yeah.
So-
That was
Yes.
awesome.
that was true.
It was so hot, I felt a convection current in the bottom of my insert
Eight.
male genitalia name here.
In the bottom of my heron mark.
in the
How
bottom
did you
of
know
my
I scalded
taint.
myself into smelting? Anyway,
Anyway, yeah, that's basically all I had to say about that. I feel like there were things done wrong with that, but I feel like the whole point of it is he's not doing it, or he doesn't need permission to follow Moraine. He knows she does not want him to follow, but he will follow for Rand. He
I'm a
will
strong,
go-
independent warder, and I don't need no permission.
Yeah, he's like, I'm gonna do Nynaeve a solid and go. And then he breaks
he
up
already
with
did
Nynaeve.
Nynaeve a couple solids.
Hey, yo.
Yeah. There we go.
And then
Yo.
she's like, hey, we could get married. And he's like, yeah, peace out. I gotta go.
That's actually what it was. It wasn't the permission. It was like, hey, I want you to marry me. And he was like, I have something to do right now.
Gotta go to
It
the
was
blight.
that commitment issues.
Okay, bye.
He's like, I probably won't make it back. So yeah, good luck with that. He'll
In
probably
between the
find
land of
somebody else. It's
Malkier and
I'll call you.
Yeah, don't call me.
When
we'll call
I
you.
get back, we'll
Yeah.
definitely make that happen.
Yeah.
Proceeds
My
to run
people,
to
so
certain
your
death.
people would arrange the funeral.
I have to say.
All right, Josh,
I
go.
I have to say, this is actually one of the things that I really loved with Lan. Everybody likes to focus on Lan and Moraine, right? Everybody likes to say
Okay.
Lan and Moraine. They've been riding together for decades now.
Ride or die. Yep.
His job, his duty is to defend and protect Moraine to the best of his ability. But for the first time in that interaction, he's conflicted because now he is in love with Nynaeve. And my perspective on this was that he straight up says Moraine doesn't want to be followed, which, okay, but Lan and Moraine have the type of real friendship where if I'm going to do something stupid that will actually harm me, I have good friends in the form of Andrew and Daniel and others who will say, no,
Who are you?
you're not
I
going to
mean,
do
yes,
that thing.
you're right.
But I'm going to say, but I really want to do that thing. And they're going to go, no, really, no, you're not. Okay. Lan and
let's
Marie
have a round table
kind of
about
relationship. That'll be another episode.
Yeah.
So shots. Anyway, my thinking is that Lan's conflict comes from the fact that he is now in love with Nynaeve. Where's Nynaeve? In Faldara.
Touch my Tralana.
About to be overrun by Trollocs. He knows Moraine can take care of herself, but he also knows the mission she's on. So now he's conflicted because now he knows maybe he stays in Faldara to defend Nynaeve. And he's conflicted. And it's only when Nynaeve says, look, I'm giving you permission to go to them only so that you can bring Rand back. And she essentially charges him to bring Rand back. And that's the permission he needs from the woman he loves to sort of break that conflict.
Back to reality.
You know, we can hear you, Andrew.
Yes.
But for me, that's the conflict that I see Lan having. And I actually really loved this part. This is one of the pieces of the show that I really, really loved. Because, okay, not only was there the fan service of, I will hate the man you choose because he is not me, but I will love him if he makes you
because
smile.
he makes you smile.
I was in tears watching that scene. I will admit,
Dude, the number of romance points that I got from that fucking interaction must have been
Oh.
like 87 points.
You must have got-
I'll say my
seriously.
piece when it's my turn, but it felt gratuitous.
Yeah. Well,
Wow.
Daniel
fuck
Henney,
you,
can we
Andrew.
say he is
Fuck you
nailing
right
this
in the
role?
plot hole. Oh,
Yeah,
he's
my
so
goodness.
good.
Yes.
He's
So
nailing
good.
the
Lan,
Wow,
role.
Daniel,
so
don't
good
threaten
as a
me.
Lan. Better than
He
the
is.
book's Lan. Dare I say that?
I like
Better
it
than the
better.
book's Lan.
Daniel
but
Henney is
again-
nailing everything on the show.
Heyo.
Oh,
Everything,
For Trollocs!
or just like
Okay, not
Yeah.
everything, but he's definitely nailed a handful of Trollocs and Nynaeve and the character.
No, and that's
what,
and that's
what we're
where I
hearing
can
is
wrap up my
Henny is
point.
not picky.
Nope,
Heyo.
not at all.
He's
He's a
flexible.
warder. Are you allowed to be picky if you're a warder? That's what I'm learning.
My point ends with that is that the conflict I see there is I definitely feel like, yes, he could go right off and find Moraine. Nobody can question that. Nobody can contest that. But I think what they were trying to show
Sure they can.
is that he now has a separate interest with his love for Nynaeve and is conflicted because he knows the city of Faldara is about to be overrun. And he knows he can't leave one to save the other. And he's very conflicted because he knows he's sacrificing one no matter what he chooses. And he's in a really bad spot right now. Nynaeve, the absolute goddess of a woman she is, senses and sees this and says, look, go protect them, but bring Rand back to me. And
I don't give a fuck about Moraine. You bring
in
Rand
that
back.
in that mandate, she implies that you also need to come back.
Yes.
And I really love that. This is one of the things about the show that I love. Absolutely love. And I'm
Rob,
done.
So,
And I yield
I'm
my
gonna
time
go.
to the chairman.
and then we'll let Rob go last for this Moraine Land
Well, last
segment.
second,
It was
last.
a Moraine and
I'm
Rand
usually first.
segment.
Sorry.
So I'll address the previous comment I made. It feels gratuitous for somebody that doesn't know the books, for somebody that is only watching the show. Lan and Nynaeve have this kind of tangential, like very barely touching the bottom of the sack kind of love back and forth jokey thing, right?
okay.
And that goes throughout 3 or 4 episodes of the season. And then they sleep together.
Uh-huh.
And then the next day, literally the next morning, it's I'm so in love with you. This prolific Shakespearean profession of love. From somebody just watching the show, it makes no sense.
Andrew, I'm going to cut you off here. I'm actually going to cut you off here for a second because you have to give the show
That's fine.
watchers
I didn't do
as
that to you,
much
but
credit as you give book readers, because you've said the same thing about book relationships in the opposite direction. And I love you,
and I can account for that.
But come on, you got to give
he's
TV
got
show
receipts.
watchers. You got to
I've
give
got
TV
receipts
show
for that.
watchers as much as you give.
Daniel's like
book
the IRS.
readers.
He doesn't care about the receipts.
I do care about the receipts.
So the receipts, whenever you're doing a book, there's an implicit understanding, an implicit implication that there are things that are more nuanced in the books, in the text, that are inferred that you're supposed to grab from.
Correct.
There is a degree of that in a show. But
There's even more of that.
Negative. But the show has so much of an option to physically show through subtle face acting, through subtle like hints and looks and glances to show a budding, building relationship. They don't get as much as a freebie as a book does. I didn't interrupt you when you were talking, so I'm going to ask that you let me finish. All right. So the show had plenty of time through all this time, through 3 or 4 episodes where Lan and Nynaeve were physically around each other, to show little sneak offs, to show this, all the stuff that we infer from the books as the defense is. And they don't. They show them talking very heart to heart once, that gets cut off by the appearance of other characters. Then they show them making it to Faldara. They show them sharing a passionate night. And then the very next morning seems a lot like a frat boy and frat girl getting together and being like, I love you. This is the first real intimate relationship I've had. And then suddenly it's this prolific kind of monologue about how I'll hate who you choose because he's not me, but love him if he makes you smile. The stuff that we love as book readers, the stuff that we want to see because the books provide for that. The show does not. The books provide the avenues for that to happen. It provides the gaps in what we see to read into that relationship budding and building over weeks. The show makes the viewer assume that budding relationship happened over days, and it's just not believable. And so it becomes gratuitous rather than believable for the non-reader. For the book reader, we want to love it. I as a book reader, I love the scene because it hallmarks to the books. Looking at it from the way it's done in the TV show, it's gratuitous. It's obviously thrown in for the book readers to enjoy. It's obviously thrown in for the fans. It makes no linear sense in the actual show itself. There's not enough time to build that relationship.
I can see that. I think it's part of the pacing of the show.
That being said, that's why
I still disagree,
earlier.
but I can see
fine.
what you're saying.
I will also say that line actually happens significantly earlier in the books, and it happens about the same amount of time after they meet as it does in the show.
Agreed.
However,
in the books, they have an unimaginable, not unimaginable, because we've imagined it, but a fair amount of time to be around each other, have these steal away discussions, and there's the impression they've had several of these. That impression is not left with the show.
So like
Something
a month and a week.
to point out though, there is more time than we realize, because that traveling time with Taim Gaines,
the month time skip and all that.
That time after he's been captured and they're
when you drink
along.
a Four Kings on recording.
Well, so here's the thing.
It's empty. So there is quite a bit of time at the fires or whatnot. They've had some bonding time there.
Yes, and
just bonding. That's all I said.
And that's the criticism, is the show allots for the time. But because the show has the ability to show those glances, those sidelong looks, those physical indicators, those on the screen indicators, which is the biggest thing that the show has to overcome, right? It has to translate 15 pages of Robert Jordan describing a dress into 5 seconds of on-screen time. They don't translate that into a budding relationship for Lan and Nynaeve. I think if they had 2 more episodes per season, because I'm really hoping that moving forward they have 10 episodes per season, which equates to an additional 2 seasons if you assume 8 seasons. If they had done that, it gives them the chance to show that. It gives them the chance to show more of Nynaeve being at the water fires or Nynaeve hanging around Lan. because the impression left from the show is that the first time that Nynaeve and Lan really have a true, full-on, meaningful one-on-one discussion is outside of his bedchambers. Whenever she makes the decision to come back in, it seems like that is the turning point where the relationship turns from like curious or inquisitive into a more romantic interest relationship. And then literally the next day in the show, it's I can't be with you forever. I hate the man. The line that we love. I mean, there's some other comparisons to pull there that I won't pull because just mentioning kind of how they are seems disparaging to certain individuals that are part of the production team, which isn't how they're meant, but I'm just going to avoid that entirely. But it seems like it was included for fans that have read the series to sit there and be like, okay, I recognize these lines. These lines are interesting. And because I know kind of how things happen in the books and because I like how it happened in the books, I therefore like how it happened in the show. In the show, I think it's gratuitous. I think it's a favor to the fans. Again, that's my take on it versus, anybody else. I don't really have too much to say on the Lan and Moraine front that hasn't already been said. So I know we're way over time already. Rob, go ahead, and then I guess Rand gets his own kind of segment. Do y'all have about another 20 to 30 minutes?
I'm in.
Good.
Okay, so Rob, Moraine, Nynaeve, Lan kind of sphere, and then we'll delve into the emo extraordinaire.
On the sort of Lan Moraine piece, the only thing I would have to add is I kind of, again, harking back to what I said earlier, that the respect thing. I think that there was a trust and respect that like she doesn't want me.
Wait, hold on.
All right, we're good. Sorry.
So harking back again, sorry, to what I said earlier, I think there's kind of a trust. Yeah, Zoom crashed out.
The change has taken your computer, sir.
What a surprise when Rob talks. The Black Tower podcast has Zoom. What a surprise.
So they moved the chat, they moved the chat button and like it interchanged with the pause button. So that's fully on me and 2.5 tall boys. But
and so yeah, there was that trust of like she doesn't want me to follow. She's trying to save me. So that's the only thing I could sort of add into that. I do have the Lan and Nynaeve thing. Like I do want to add in something there. The non-book readers that I have chatted to buy the romance. So I want to throw that one out
Liars.
there.
Every one of them. Liars.
I think there's just because it's the first night they've had sex doesn't mean that the month traveling together where she's choosing to spend every night at the Waters Fire, the curiosity about him going off somewhere and giving a blessing at one point, the tracking him to the person he's gone to in Faldara, which turns out is obviously the nice little Bukama moment, which yes, I love that. And then seeing how he interacts with them and, seeing more of this person as opposed to Moraine's water. And then they sleep together. Like I've known people that have, courted for a long time and then they've not actually like confessed anything until like, oh, okay, now we're actually together type thing. But we've been circling this one point for months, weeks, days, whatever it might be. I mean, whirlwind romances happen, so it could, days works, but I don't know. I've been people have been telling me it fits and they buy it, and I also buy it. So that's I'm not going to sit there and be like, you're wrong or anything, Andrew. You're totally entitled to your opinion.
You are valid.
For me, it worked.
You are 100% valid.
So let's take that moment because that's a good point to make. Look.
Yes, he is. Fuck you, Josh. Eat a dick.
Everybody has a right to their own agency of opinion, of thought, of everything where this goes.
Correct.
We are not professing this to be, just because there's 6 of us talking doesn't mean we're like an expert collaboration. I mean, yeah, we are. But anyway, we're an expert collaboration of how the Wheel of Time should be viewed. By all means, take what you take from the show, from the books, whatever. As long as you can back it up with rational thought, as you've seen here. If it is rational thought, nobody's looking at the other person being like, how could you think that, Nobody's sitting there being like, "Oh, you're an absolute moron." How could you
Where's
do
my
that?"
half axe thing for Andrew? No, I'm joking.
Like, except for me. No, but nobody is seriously
No,
doing
you're
it.
good,
Like, we
you're
might make the joke, like, here and there as a joking thing, but we're good enough, friends, and we've worked with each other or get the vibe of each other enough to where we know that. So, that being said, when you have differing opinions, you don't have to sit there and evangelize everybody else in the world to think how you think. That's the beauty of the Wheel of Time. It's like the living Constitution, the living Bible, the living pick a document or whatever. You glean what you glean from it, and that's what makes the discussion so fun. You think it would be a lot of fun if I'm like, yeah, the Lan and Nynaeve relationship in the show is gratuitous, and everybody else is like, yes, Andrew, you are exactly right. This is a scholarly opinion, and it's 100% the accurate one. No, it'd be a boring fucking show.
That's a great content. Take my money. No.
Yeah. It's boring.
Besides,
So-
people like it when we argue.
Yeah. So when you're sitting there and like, me arguing with like Josh or Daniel or anybody else is generally more of like a jokey thing. Like, if I'm sitting there like making comments about like, oh, I didn't interrupt you, so don't interrupt me. Like, I'm fucking with the person. I'm not actually upset or pissed. Like, you would know if I was, because I would disappear
Daniel,
from the fucking
however,
screen. Like, oh, why did this episode of the podcast stop, suddenly with no ending? That's because Andrew got pissed and stopped the recording. You're like, no, I don't get that way.
no. That's Rob's talking. Hit pause.
No, that's what I do. That's how you know I'm pissed. Rob's talking. I hit pause and I'm like, look.
That's how. Wait,
We
no.
cater to it. We
That's
cater
how
to a
Andrew's
different audience.
pissed. Rob
Right,
is
next
talking.
What a Holiday. I'm just going to put up a glitching picture of Black Tower podcast for this lot.
It's the
I mean,
Malkier
honestly,
doesn't
And
talk
you'll make
podcast.
more money on that hour than any other hour.
Here's
That
money to
is
fix it,
both,
Rob.
like- How did Josh just make a disparaging comment about us, but also a like fucking conceited comment about us?
It
Like,
really was.
oh god.
Talent. It's a
But I mean,
talent
that's the
with a
thing, like,
capital
you
T.
can see, like, if you're not watching us on, if you're not watching this episode on YouTube, and if you're not a YouTube person for podcasts, that's fine. By all means, I'm working on convincing other people to do stuff for this, to make it more YouTube friendly, where you're not watching an hour of content on YouTube. But go and check out the episode on YouTube. You can look and see throughout all of this, we're all smiling, we're all having fun. This is what makes the Wheel of Time fandom so fun to be a part of.
Robert Jordan would say we're all handsome rather than beautiful, but
That's true.
This is what makes
Yeah.
it so fun. Stop it, Rob.
Unreasonably attractive fandom.
definitely an
Because we have so much fun. We fuck with everybody else so much. It's like, if you take any of the criticisms we've given each other serious here, then you think we're serious about like Nablus and his yachts. Like, come on.
Nate,
I mean, he's
Nablus has
only got
yachts?
5. He only has 5. We're joking when we say 8 and 10. All right.
Yeah, exactly.
now I'm pissed off. I've never been invited to a Nablus yacht party. Screw
Well,
you,
you've
You've
Nablus.
never been invited? Oh,
Yeah.
See, that's
sorry,
a trade-off.
Josh.
You got
I'll invite you to my
bunch more
hovercraft
appearances.
party. How's that?
Thank you, Rob.
Which, by the way, Rafe, I'm
No.
still waiting on. So
No,
Yeah,
Rob,
Rafe.
don't. Like, Josh has been on Dusty Wheel enough where he's on the blacklist for the hover party and for the Nablus party.
Nice.
So
Okay, so last
Let's-
aspect of episode
let's
8.
move into Rand. Rand.
Let's not
Ooh.
move into Rand.
Wait,
I
do
don't
I need my
think he's
penetration
in
gift?
I
back
don't
up?
want to
There we go.
move
Penetration.
into Rand.
And
Speak for
I'm
yourself.
going there.
Speak for yourself. I have always been a
Yosha's a
fan of
handsome
gingers.
man, but also
Look, I've got red in my beard. I am predisposed to gingers. All right.
You're
My Irish
Haven't
ancestry
you
brethren.
seen those
and sister.
cheekbones? Yosha's
I
all
know,
broody.
right?
They're both
Oh.
big. They both
You know-
brood.
It's always so fitting. Every time Joshua looks like super confused in an episode, I'm super confused in real life. It's like we have like a mental connection.
he's
You have a
gorgeous.
thing going on.
I'm just saying it.
Hey.
I'm just saying it right now. He's gorgeous.
So
Even when he's
Oh,
beat up
fuck yeah.
and muddy from
when
trudging
he's-
through the blight.
Bald.
He's
Holy
gorgeous.
shit. Anyway, we're going to start the segment on talking about Rand. Ow, fuck. We're going to start with
Is that what you say
something
when
hurts me
Rand turns
equally
up?
as
Like,
much.
oh, fuck,
He was
dude.
picturing spanking Rand. That's what that was. I saw it.
When Rand is clapping.
What's the
his
safe word,
cheeks.
folks?
We're going to start with Daniel on this one.
Are we turning this into an episode of North Harbor podcast right now?
Whoa. Everybody
Kinda what it's
knows,
starting to
and I'm
sound
only
like.
saying this because a member of North Harbor podcast is listening right now. Everybody knows North
The
Harbor
Black
just picked
Tower.
up Black Tower podcast, flipped it, and reversed it.
Oh!
It's a joke.
I thought
Go
you-
check out North Harbor podcast. They're fantastic.
I thought you were
But-
going to say that the Black Tower podcast, the Black Tower always points to North Harbor.
That's also eventually, after a couple probing lightning strikes, we finally found the right thing.
I am really enjoying live chat right now. It's
Oh,
basically
it's
just
fucking
like lots of like cheek slapping and spanking gifs and on your knees gifs and things like that. Yeah,
Team getting into a ginger. That's what I'm waiting for.
I feel
Come
like
on,
I just need to
find
leave
it.
the penetration
Rob,
gif up on screen
Rob,
right now. So
you know-
you know,
Rob,
You know that
get
we
into
need to do that, right?
ginger.
You know that, Rob. We need to do a live stream, which I know Lesbian Nerdy is the queen of memes, but we need to do a live stream talking like breaking down the best gifts. Excuse me, the best gifts
From the
and
TV
memes
show?
from the TV show.
oh, but Jim, you're the one you just put
Oh,
in.
Jim! For those of you who don't know what's
amazing.
happening, for our Patreons, you get to listen along live as we do this.
Join now,
You get-
patreon.com/
You get the
Black
Black
Tower
Tower
podcast, I think?
podcast raw, and Jim is posting things that are marginalizing gingers. I think we should dance.
You know what?
Jim.
Jim, if nobody else will give it to you, for the ginger in my beard, you get the ginger pass.
They don't have souls, so like, that helps.
There you go.
How can you be
I-
hurt? Anyway, Daniel,
Yeah.
Daniel.
Rand in episode 8, who should be the star boy, or I'm not going to influence. Well, I already don't, but Rand in episode 8.
No, you do, Andrew. Don't sell yourself short.
Aw.
But I think that they actually did Rand right. I know that they changed a handful of things as far as where the eye of the
All
world
right, guys,
isn't
bid farewell
to
to Daniel.
but the fact that Rand is so conflicted about everything and he almost turns to the shadow, and the fact that Ishamael gets in his head, and the fact that that Moraine almost murders his dumbass, like all of it was spiritually Rand. I liked it. But then, he does end up doing the right thing, which is absolutely, spoiler alert, kind of what Rand does throughout the whole thing is he gets real close to that darkness. And then he goes, no, I'm going to go up to a mountain. I'm going to go up to a mountain and find myself. Now, I mean, like, I get that he does balefire an entire city, so he gets like really close. But like every time he just goes, no, I'm not going to do that. And I think that was a well done portrayal of Rand and the relationship that they had created out of him and Egwene, because that is sort of book related, but it's definitely not nearly as heavy in the books as it is in the TV show. And so combining the Portal Stone lives with that ending sequence, I thought was really brilliant. And I actually really liked that all of those story beats at the end were there, except that, Amalisa destroys all the Trollocs instead of Rand. But other than that, I feel like all of those story
Blue
beats
balls
were there. And like I think that they did Rand right as far as the spirit, even though they fucked with all of the events.
All right. We are going to jump across my screen. No, we're not. We're going to jump just below Daniel on my screen. We're going to go to Morgan.
Oh. So I felt like they had a lot of license since the end of the Eye of the World doesn't make any sense. So they could, do whatever they liked. Because they're, you've got your unreliable narrator going on, and since Rand doesn't really understand what's happening, there's just like a lot of malleable stuff where they could do good world building. So I felt like it was pretty true to Rand's character. I liked how he was. I felt like he was, I liked how they did at first I was kind of like, weird about how, he touched what ended up being the seal, and then it was almost like he was doing Egwene's acceptance test instead. But it showed him, struggling at first, because it's just sort of like, oh my God, I can make everything that I want real. Percival, you get down. Get down.
It's like talking to someone with children.
The cat just intervened. I saw that. That's great.
That's great.
Anyway,
I almost threw the dark one away until Percival got in the way.
Damn it, Percival!
Damn you, Percival!
Anyway, but yeah, he it shows him being kind of like, this is totally what I want, this looks amazing, and then realizing, but this isn't the real Egwene, because this isn't what she would want, and just kind of this understanding that this is not like the real world, and also just kind of like knowing that Ishii is a little gross, he just gives off gross vibes, and so just getting that, yeah, this isn't cool, this isn't what I want, and all of that seems very realistic, and also it's just much better, much more subtle, just not so much mwahaha like you get in the books, which is more appealing. I feel like they should have made it a little more obvious that it was a manipulation to get him there, because obviously, or I think maybe not necessarily obviously, but the thing in the floor was one of the seals, or maybe the only seal, because as Ishamael is disappearing, you see kind of smirks, and so I'm assuming that he needed Rand to break that, because it's like he had two options: either Rand like totally goes to the shadow and remakes the world in his own image, or else he just breaks the seal and then they're able to get out. So I'm assuming next season we're going to have the Forsaken, they were able to escape because Rand broke the seal. Rand. Yeah, I feel like it was just kind of fairly decently done, just not real well explained. But, if you leave it on a cliffhanger like that, you can explain it later on. So I was okay with how they did that. And because it was so lackluster and like it wasn't a very exciting battle and everything, all of the non-readers are like, that seems kind of strange. Like there's got to be something else going on here. So you've got a lot of people who are
weird,
curious about like, what actually
suspicious.
happened here. Yeah, so
It's a trap.
I liked how they did it. I am totally cool with the Eye of the World and Shale Ghoul being the same thing. And, I was expecting it to be more of like, we're gonna, fight a Forsaken in like a mwahaha moment that was a little more dramatic. I wasn't exactly expecting that Rand was gonna break the seal to let someone out. I don't know if they're gonna have more seals around the world or if that was the only one. Like, I'm not exactly sure what's going on there. But, as far as Rand, yeah, it's sort of like, but, I'm excited to see how they're gonna do it. So, yeah.
All right. Rob.
I'm going to be concise. I have three things.
0 to second 3 of episode. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
I have three things. Firstly, I think how Rand behaved like across their journey and at the end was very well done. I very much enjoyed it. I think it was a good portrayal of Rand, the things he would feel, act with Moraine, how, especially how Moraine was feeling. Like it all worked really well for me and I enjoyed it. Point 2, the way when they're traveling and they haven't gotten to the eye yet, and Rand has that dream moment, the way he wakes himself up by sheathing the sword.
Brilliant.
That's so cool.
Also,
yeah,
great callback to the books. I loved it. Very
didn't
subtle.
catch that.
Yep, very nicely done. And thirdly, I want to call out, I called this out in the after party, and I'll call it out here again. A tweet that was, well, I didn't call it out, but the host Morgan called it out actually. But again, I shared it. Basically, so this is a guy on Twitter, Dr. W. Brian Lane. At
Please
W.
link it
Brian
to me.
Lane.
I'll throw it in the visual of the episode.
Yeah, I'll show it up to you. It says, so can we talk about how the world was saved? All right, you can debate that point yourself, whatever, but
Sure.
How the world was saved by a man respecting a woman's autonomy, and basically Rand turning around and saying at the end, well, look, what I want doesn't matter. This is not what she would want. And
Yeah,
I love that point. I think that's amazing.
Can I also, sorry,
I love
this
that.
is
Good.
like,
that was my 3 points. I'm done.
Emotionally good, strong male character.
right?
Yes.
Okay, so I actually want to
Yes.
mention really, really quick because this doesn't happen in the books. But I love that Tigraine gets stabbed in the exact same place as Rand.
Yeah.
Oh yes,
She gets stabbed in the side exactly the same way as Rand gets stabbed by Ishamael and then later by Padan Fane. And I fucking loved that shit.
I didn't even catch that. Right on.
Anyway,
Oh,
keep
s-
going.
She ran in the front. She got a kidney shot. It's like, it was
I
close.
thought.
Oh, I have a fourth point.
Okay.
I don't know.
Oh, fourth point. Rob, go. Fourth point. Go.
Sorry, I got a little
Break the
extra to
fourth
give,
point.
ladies. Sorry. I also love the full spoilers here. I also love how the way that he
What did he
quote
say?
saves life here is like a foreshadowing that obviously only book readers will know about for how the last battle works between him and the Dark
Oh,
One.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Totally.
So sorry.
They
Yeah.
totally
Now
pulled
I'm
that in.
absolutely done.
Yeah,
Sorry,
they
just
did.
a little extra for
100%.
you there. Little
All right.
bonus weeks, folks.
Sorry, ladies. Rob had a little extra for you.
That's
Why are you
nothing
being
anyone ever
sorry?
needs to
All the ladies in our
apologize
live chat are like, oh, yeah, Malkier. Give it to me.
for.
Give
I
me
could
that.
use a little extra mouth candy.
Hey-o.
My first point, and this is like the proudest point that I ever pointed out anywhere, and it actually happened during Critter's live stream for their Monday Will and Chill show with Critter and Tavir and Tavern and Winespring. If you look at the floor that Rand is walking on at the Eye of the World, and you go back and watch the 360 trailer and look down at the floor in the
That's
360
it.
trailer, it is the goddamn same floor.
Awesome.
Fucking
I
Wheel
had
of
no
Time,
fucking idea.
Masters
brilliant.
of Foreshadowing. They showed
So
us what the end scene was kind of look at, but also the same way they show Sidene and Sidere kind of whirling around and meeting in themselves, and they showed in the first Waygate Moraine teaser the shot that you get of Rand, but it's facing up to the sky. It is the Aes Sedai symbol as well.
Yep.
So you can see in the clouds that there is that kind of coalescing, spinning around each other, dark clouds and light clouds with each other. So those were two like kind of production-y notes that I made that I was like, that's fucking cool. And I was like, for a while on the floor, I was like, oh, I'm probably wrong. And I went back and looked, I'm like, maybe I'm like half right. And then they showed a better shot of the floor. And I'm like, no, your boy is right. It's the exact same floor.
Boy.
Just one is like
You're
kind of like flooded
goddamn
over.
right.
And you're goddamn beautiful.
With the way things played out, I think it's clear to both reader and non-reader that Ishmael set Ran up to no matter what decision he made, it served his purpose to break the seal. And I think this is my prediction going into season 2. I think him breaking the physical seal at the Eye of the World releases the Forsaken. I think that's why we haven't seen the Forsaken, why we didn't get Balthamel and Naganor and all this other.
I mean, but did we really need Agenor and Baltham? Fuck those guys. They were so useless.
You know, it was a good exposition piece.
No, it was. You're right. It was.
I'm one of the people when people are like, the ending of the Eye of the World was confusing, and I'm like, but why though? Like,
I mean,
I understand how it can be. So I'm not like sitting there saying anybody that says like, oh, it's confusing is wrong. They're not. It just wasn't for me. Like I was fortunate or unlucky, whatever you call it, where it wasn't really confusing for me. There's also the kind of I just completely lost my train of thought. Obviously we see Ishmael with the same Angreal that Luce Theron had. This is where we get into the whole, was Moraine stilled or not? Was she de facto stilled or was she actually stilled? I side on the air of de facto stilled. And before anybody in the comments or whatever goes, oh, Brandon said she was stilled, go back and re-listen to his segment with Dusty Wheel, and he says she was stilled, I think.
No, not from what I
The mechanisms how you see it don't match up with stilling. They don't match up with ripping somebody away from the ability to channel the source or the true power.
It didn't come out of her.
From what
Yeah.
I read from Rafe's interview, it doesn't sound like she was stilled at all.
There's a
Yeah.
heavy amount of implication,
Yes.
Well, you also have
and I'm
people that
not
like.
okay with it.
Oh,
You
I'm
also,
super.
you also
okay
have
with it.
people that hear like Brandon Sanderson say something about the Wheel of Time series and like, oh, that's the gospel truth. And it's like, well, you're talking
Yeah.
about the TV show that is different and based off of what Rafe says. So
Yeah.
who should get more credence on what they say about what
Yeah.
happens?
My impression was, sorry, I'm interrupting you. Go ahead.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
Oh, my impression was because she doesn't have much story arc in The Great Hunt and they have to have Rosamund Pike doing things. They just kind of gave her a problem to solve. But yeah,
Because
the way,
she's a blue. She needs a problem.
Here's your
I
own
would-
D&D puzzle.
yeah, I would not personally, if I were writing the show, have given the problem of, a Forsaken tied down a shield on you and you got to go figure out how to get it unraveled. But that would not have
However-
been my personal narrative choice, but they did.
Who is from what we've seen in the show so far, who seems to have a knack for unraveling knots that they can't necessarily see?
I hate you. Fucking Swan Sanche, you
Yeah.
dick.
So-
This is
Oh,
also just brought up in live
Siwan.
chat as well.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. This
Yeah.
idea is 100% stolen from live chat on
Yeah.
Critter stream. 100%. Because I was like, I would like to say it's something I thought of, but I don't cognizantly remember it. So I'm gonna say,
Mhm.
Critter, your live stream brought this idea. Critter, I mean, we don't shout you out enough because we don't have that much media presence to do so. And then the same with our guest. Honestly, like. It would just be a fountain of shouting out everybody we've ever worked with and love.
That's
Which
Rob,
is like 99.99% of the people we
Morgan.
work with. But it's interesting because even though they can't see the weaves, they can still feel their way around what is there. And Suwan already shows a disposition for being able to unravel what she can't see. Her father has his back to her and is tying a knot, and she unravels it without ever seeing it. But that's just a theory.
Honestly, I'm interrupting you again. My bad.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, honestly, it might actually be
I
really
consent.
good. It might actually be really good narrative foretelling, and it just occurred to me because if they show that and they show Moraine trying to find someone to help her unravel a shield that's been woven on her by a male Forsaken, so trying to get
Unravel
a
the
knot
pattern.
undone by someone she can't see or by a power she can't see, then you have that basis built up for when Rand has to do that while he's in a box. So they've been doing a lot of things of
It's my
showing
weave in a box.
of showing you things,
my shield in a box.
to give you an
girl.
idea of stuff ahead of time, like giving you kind of a baby problem ahead of time, so you have an idea of how it works before you get to see it in real life.
really
for
good
the, the
But
real
that's how
problem.
Rand gets out in the books, right?
Mhm.
He feels and he's like, I can't see what I'm feeling, which is like me with every person I've ever dated, but I can feel where things end and begin. And I can surmise what's going on.
Yeah, and then there would
Um,
be a purpose for exposition while she's doing that, and then you don't need the exposition if Rand is in the process of doing it because you've had it before. So actually, maybe it's not as nonsensical as when I was recording my live react and I was like, what the fuck is this? Because I thought she had been stilled originally until I went and read the article afterwards. And I was like, I can't fucking understand why they would do this. And fortunately, my front camera shut off. And so I don't actually have the whole react of me going off because I had to
Oh.
watch the episode again before I liked it better.
My first reaction was terrible. My first
Yeah.
reaction to watching episode 8 was Sarah out sick that whole fucking time?
Yep.
But yeah,
Well,
so
I
it's
also
like-
want to
it's
throw
kind
out
of-
there. There's another possibility here that
There's always
have
another
heard
possibility.
around.
Holy shit.
Well, what I'm saying is,
I'm just trying to
Suwan-
validate your point to make it seem less valid. I mean, I'm just trying to win on
I love
argument.
you, Ed.
Wait, what?
You're great.
I mean, what? Continue, sir.
Is that Moraine doesn't actually do that much with channeling between the end of book 1 and when she comes back in whatever the fuck book she comes back, which I
Very
can't remember
true.
off the top of my head. But if she ends up getting stilled and then she takes Suwan's place, as the one that Nynaeve heals. You get both pieces of not necessarily needing to do the arc with Swan and just keeping her with Moraine in a relationship without Gareth Bryn, which is fine. Not necessarily the right thing, but is fine for the show.
We're going to hit pause on you real quick. I'm sorry to do this. I have to switch headsets because my current ones are dying.
No, we haven't.
Yes.
And the other thing is that you end up with Moraine being less powerful at the end of that arc, which is exactly how she comes back from the Towers of Genji.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of kill two birds with one stone if Nynaeve heals Moraine instead of Suwan. Now, again, I know that would be cutting out a shit ton of content, and I don't necessarily want that to happen in terms of I would love it for this to go 15 seasons and have them not have to cut out, the vast majority of anything. But since they've already proven that they're likely to not do that they're going to cut out a bunch of stuff, I think it's not a terrible idea to merge Moraine and Swan.
It's me again. I'm still wearing the same stuff because I'm recording this all at one time. Part 2 is over. If you found your way to this part and you haven't watched or listened to part 1, the links for that, both podcast and YouTube episodes, are down in the show notes or description below. Go and check those out. Part 3 will be out on Wednesday, the 12th of January, 2022. We got to get used to writing 2022 now. Jeez. Yep, so this does it for part 2. This is the middle part, the second to last hour of this whole 3-hour episode. Part 3 will be out again 12 January. That is a Wednesday, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Go and check it out for the final part.
You've been having so much trouble just fitting